Good morning, everybody. Yesterday we heard another speech from Kier Starmer, who is now the Prime Minister of the UK. And it is a speech where he completely fails to understand what is going on in the country and why there are protests all over the place. And in some cases, those protests are turning violent. Now, I don't condone any violence whatsoever, but I can understand the feelings of English people whose country has been systematically transformed over the last 30 years or even more by mass immigration. And every time someone says they don't like this, they don't like what's happening to the country, they don't like the way that their communities are being transformed, particularly poor post-industrial northern towns where the majority of events have taken place over the last week. They've seen their towns destroyed, communities destroyed, jobs gone, and massive movements of people from overseas into their towns because homes there are cheaper. So people come over, they migrate to this country as a point of deliberate government policy to allow rapid mass migration, which doesn't benefit ordinary English working people whatsoever. And they get dumped in northern towns because their homes are cheaper. There were more empty homes available, perhaps, or more council homes available. So they put migrants there. And so ordinary English people find it harder to get a council home. Their wages are suppressed. They find it harder to get jobs, all these kind of things. But whenever anyone has said, we don't like this, we don't like the consequences of this, why don't you invest in us as English people, they get called racist. And along with that, there has been an increase in migrant crime. There's no doubt about this. We know about grooming gangs, which have been going on for 30 or 40 years. And occasionally some people get put through the court system. They get paltry penalties of 4 or 5 years in prison for sexual abuse, child sexual abuse, essentially. And but the situation goes on, and now we have incident after incident after incident of violent migrant crime, and we saw the fuse, the torchlight, the torch paper for what's gone on this week was the murder of 3 English girls in Southport by a Rwandan boy. Well, he's now had his 18th birthday, I think, so he can now be called a man. But he went and killed 3 English girls, one 6, one 7, one 9 year old, for no reason that we can make out. And this comes on the top of Emily Lloyd being decapitated in Bolton, a 7 year old girl by an Albanian migrant, soldier stabbed in Kent a couple of weeks ago, the Manchester airport incident 10 years ago, I think 11 years ago, Lee Rigby was killed in Woolwich by a migrant in the most horrible way. And these are just some of the incidences: the Manchester airport terrorist attack, the London Bridge terrorist attack, the Westminster Bridge terrorist attack, Borough Market terrorist attack. All of these things go on and on and on. And we see that when English people or white people are killed by someone who's a migrant, whether it's an individual killing or a mass terrorist murder, they always play the same playbook. Oh, look, let's not get angry. Don't look back in anger. Light a candle and then forget about it. But when you have people go out and protest against this, what I see is they put agents in the crowd, accelerators in the crowd in order to make it violent. And then they smear all English people as far-right thugs, even though most of the people going out to protest have some clear demands. One is that we stop mass rapid immigration, that comes to an end. and people who shouldn't be in the country are sent back. And that would include migrant criminals and people who are bogus asylum seekers, and also people who have outstayed their visas, whose visas, working visas, student visas, have come to an end. They should go back to their countries when the time period that they were allowed to stay in the country is expired. But what we've had is a complete failure to deal with migration over the last 30 years. And now we've got a new government coming in which says we're going to give we're going to grant the right to stay to all the asylum seekers in the country, 100,000 or so of them. The number of illegal boats coming across the channel has gone through the roof. It's even higher this year than it was in the last 2 years, which were the highest ever. There's legal migration through work and student visas of 700,000 in absolute net, and 1.3 million in absolute figures of people coming to the country. And the country simply can't cope. And ordinary English people who've seen the country transformed before their eyes without anyone asking them, do you want this to happen to your country? And if they did, the answer would be no. Are told that they're racist, and not just racist now, they're called far-right thugs. But Kier Starmer has inflamed the situation, because not only has he tarred everyone protesting, even people protesting peaceful, and the majority of people protesting are peaceful, apart from there are some thugs there, and I do, as I said before, wonder if they are state agents, because they're going in with their faces covered, almost like they're Antifa. Maybe it's the same people that inflame and accelerate or the protests, whether it's left-wing or right-wing protests. I wouldn't be surprised if there are state agents there. But he hasn't just tarred everybody who's protesting as a far-right thug. He's also said we're going to protect the other side, whether it's Muslims or minorities or counter-protesters to people who don't want a continuation of mass migration. And also the English people protesting are against crime. And Kier Starmer has said, we're going to keep you safe if you're a Muslim. We're going to increase protection around mosques. But he hasn't said anything about protecting the majority of ordinary people who are frightened because last week a Rwandan migrant or son of migrants went to a dance class and killed 3 young English girls. He hasn't said anything about protecting the English people, the British people at all. It's all, you're bad, even though you've been traumatized effectively over and over and over again for 30 years, but he's going to protect the communities which are carrying out the crimes. And that's not, of course, that's not to say everyone who is a migrant is bad. There are people who are migrants in the country who have come here for legitimate reasons to start businesses and to work in scarce, skilled professions. But there shouldn't really be any scarce skilled professions, because there's no excuse for any government not training up enough British people to do the jobs that need to be done in our own country. I mean, for goodness sake, you know, if the Philippines can create an excess of doctors and nurses, why can't we in the UK? I mean, it doesn't make any sense unless you understand that the purpose of successive governments in the Uniparty is to destroy the fabric of this society and to just make it into a state, a multicultural, multi-ethnic state where everyone's atomized, individualized, and then far, far easier to control because there is no culture anymore. They hate English culture, British culture, whatever you like to call it. Obviously, there's slight differences, obviously, between English and British, but you understand the indigenous home culture. They want to ruin this nation and our history and our heritage. And Kier Starmer's speech yesterday, which was only about 3 minutes long, with another couple of minutes I added on for questions, two questions from the press, which he didn't answer particularly well. He seems to clearly want to do that, to give the message that he is against English people. He has no idea of their concerns, no care whatsoever for the concerns of English people, to end mass migration, to stop migrant crime, to end two-tier policing, and to stop smearing Indigenous English people and Scots, Welsh, Northern Irish people as well, who are concerned about these three things. He hasn't done that whatsoever. He says, you're all bad, you're all far-right thugs, but we're going to protect migrant communities who have come over. And, you know, if there was a small amount of migration that was manageable, if there were 10,000 migrants a year coming into the country, no one would care. It would be absolutely fine, because that's a level of migration that everyone can cope with. And a little bit is good and positive, because people can interact with different people from different countries and different cultures. But we haven't got 10,000 people per year migrating, which we had, you know, roughly that number, or maybe a few tens of thousands before 1997. We now have nearly 100 times that amount, over a million migrants coming to the country every year. It's simply not possible to cope with that. And within that figure, of course, there are going to be people, and there are people coming who are criminals, or just people who are wanting to suck benefits out of the country, or even worse, violent terrorists. And they're the ones that the government needs to get a grip on. They're the ones that's the problem. That's the issue that the government needs to sort out. And then none of these protests, some of which are turning violent, I know, that's not good, I know. But this wouldn't be happening if successive governments had not allowed mass migration to take place, whether it's illegal or legal but unuseful, and an excuse for not investing in English, Scottish, Welsh, Northern Irish people in this country. So that's where we are at the moment. Kier Starmer either completely doesn't understand what's going on, being in the London bubble, or he is deliberately inflaming the situation. Now, I don't know what's in his head, of course. I can only listen to the words that he reads off the paper as he sort of bows his head to read his speech, looking at his notes every few seconds. I wonder whether he actually wrote that speech that he gave yesterday himself or not, but he must have looked at it beforehand and agreed to read it out, because otherwise he wouldn't have read it out. Clearly is his position and the position of the Labour Party and the Fabians behind the Labour Party, and everyone who's agitating for a new world order and transformation of our nation and other nations around the Western world into multi-ethnic states with no culture, no history, no heritage, no sense of belonging whatsoever, where the indigenous people, European people, American people, in the United States, white people, are second-class citizens in their own country, to the point where they will ultimately be wiped out or become a very, very small minority. I mean, we already know from the Oxford professor, I can't remember his name, but it was published in 2010, that white British people will be a minority in Britain by 2066. The thing is, since 2010, mass migration has accelerated, and also the death rate among white people has accelerated after the whole injection era. You know, we know all about that. That's a whole different issue as well. Abortions are going through the roof. So now it's gone 1 in 4. It was 1 in 4 pregnancies ended in an abortion. 200,000. Now it's 255,000 a year. So that's more like 1 in 3 pregnancies. We're getting on for 1 in 3 pregnancies now ending in an abortion. So we're killing our own children before they're born, and then the birth rate, of course, is going down. Total fertility in the UK is now below 1.5, I think, and it's going down and down and down. You need at least 2.1 total fertility rate to sustain your population. Clearly, the white population is dying off slowly, but that will be precipitated as the years and the decades go on. So I wonder if the white population in the United Kingdom is going to be a minority, an absolute minority, way before 2066, as it was predicted by this Oxford professor in 2010. It might be 2050 by now. There's already a minority in many local education authority primary school areas. And so, of course, that will feed through what the demographics you see coming through in primary schools will be the demographics you see for the whole country in 40 years' time. And white British are already a minority in primary schools. So, unless something drastic changes, this is the future. And I think what's happening here is that people are just fed up. They've been provoked and poked again and again and again and again and again by successive governments who have not listened to ordinary British people, have trashed the country, transformed the country through mass migration. And now people are saying, well, it's now or never. I think the feeling on the streets are, we got to do something about this now, or it's going to be never. And so people are taking to the streets. And again, I don't condone violence at all, but most of the people are out protesting against mass migration, against migrant crime, against two-tier policing, are peaceful people who have just been ignored and smeared and beaten down by successive governments. And this is a spontaneous movement. There's no single person leading anything here. People are just going out all over the place because they've had enough. And clearly, there's no respect for Sir Kier Starmer. Quite rightfully, he doesn't deserve respect because he is displaying an absolutely disgusting and derisive attitude to ordinary British people. And he doesn't deserve to be the Prime Minister. He is, unfortunately, because he got the votes to do it, because there weren't enough people going out to vote to stop him getting in. But, he's no different to the Tories. He's just a nastier, he's got a nastier face on. But, Boris Johnson, Rishi Sunak, they might have had a nicer smiley face, but they would still do exactly the same thing. It's just Sir Kier Starmer is, there's nothing in him. There's no, you can't see a soul inside him. His eyes are dead. And as he talks about clamping down on the far right, by which he means native English people. So that's where we are. And that was the speech he gave yesterday. Is this going to happen? People are thinking, well, what's going to happen next? I see all kinds of people all over social media responding to my comments, responding to other people's comments, obviously terrified and traumatized by what's happening here, but also trying to figure out what's going to happen next. Well, the thing is, we don't know. And obviously, this government wants to bring in total control, the control grid of mass facial recognition surveillance technology, central bank digital currencies, digital identity, and you'll have to show that to get into concert venues and football grounds, or even to travel on a plane, or maybe even to travel on a train, or even to go into a shop or a large supermarket. That's what they want to bring in. That's what they want to bring in. And I don't subscribe to the point of view that says we shouldn't protest because we're playing into the government's hands because now they're going to bring in digital identity. Well, they want to bring this in anyway. They would find some excuse to bring this in, whatever happens. This is just a convenient thing for them to use. They've weaponized the reaction to the horrible mass murder in Southport last week to accelerate their program to bring in a police state. But they would do this anyway. So I'm not going to say to people, don't go out and protest. As long as you're protesting peacefully, we have the right to protest peacefully against government policies. And it needs to be focused, as I said, against those four things: against mass migration, against two-tier policing, against migrant crime, and against smearing people for having legitimate concerns about these things and opposition to government policy. Everyone is allowed to protest peacefully against those things. And the government does not have the right to stop people assembling peacefully and protesting peacefully against those things. And what they certainly shouldn't be doing is putting agitators in the crowd to accelerate, which you could clearly see happened in the protests in London last Wednesday, which was a very, very odd scenario. I've talked about that before. There was organisers who saying go to London. Half of the organisers didn't turn up themselves, and the other half left after a few minutes. And then the police kettled everybody and made a big show with all the big media organisations being there to film it all. That was a very odd event, but again, that was, who knows how many of those people were crisis actors, because they're real. Crisis actors are real. You just don't know who is and who isn't, but sometimes you can tell because they're just acting in a way which is way over the top and very, very odd, and that what normal people wouldn't do. But most of the protests, which are legitimate and are peaceful until someone turns up to accelerate things, are local people in local towns all over the country who are fed up with being ignored and then smeared, are coming out to protest. And there's hundreds of thousands now who will go out and protest peacefully. And Kier Starmer can bluff and threaten all he wants, but he's not going to be able to stop people protesting about those legitimate things that they have concerns about and who simply want their country to be safe. I mean, he talks about looking after the safety of minorities and Muslims. Okay, absolutely. But he doesn't care about the safety of ordinary people who've seen their children killed. And that's the thing that is absolutely diabolical, that he doesn't understand. He's not fit for office.